Tonight, breaking news, the new bombshell revelations in the CEO murder case. Did authorities know about Luigi Mangione before his arrest? We're just learning law enforcement spoke to Mangione's mother one day before he was arrested at a Pennsylvania McDonald's. That conversation reportedly after San Francisco police recognized Mangione from a missing persons report and flagged the FBI, who alerted officials on the East Coast. We have all the late-breaking details. Also tonight, an NBC News exclusive. The woman filing a civil lawsuit against rapper Jay-Z, accusing him and Sean Diddy Combs of rape when she was 13 years old, now speaking out. What she's saying about the music mogul as our reporting finds inconsistencies surrounding those allegations. Will RFK Jr. push to get rid of the polio vaccine? New York Times report saying that his lawyer once tried to revoke the shot's long-standing approval. The move as Kennedy, President-elect Trump's choice for Health and Human Services Secretary, prepares for the confirmation process. A host of lawmakers speaking out about the vaccine, credited with effectively eradicating the disease in the U.S. Surviving chemical warfare. Victims of Syria's deadly nerve gas attack speaking freely for the very first time since the Assad regime fell. We hear from them directly about the horrors they endured and their renewed hope that Assad will be held accountable. Bitter blast. Arctic air fueling a Great Lakes snowstorm, sending temperatures plunging. The ice storm warning just issued as millions brace for a brutal cold snap, when you might see those frigid temperatures rebound. And questions over mysterious drone sightings now reaching a fever pitch. Lawmakers demanding some answers as hundreds of devices are seen hovering in the sky. Now the president-elect is weighing in. And a manhunt in Philadelphia for a suspect in a deadly home invasion. A mother left paralyzed after she was shot. How Syrian may have saved her life. Plus, former House Speaker Nancy Pelosi hospitalized in Luxembourg. What we know at this hour. Top story starts right now. And good evening. I'm Sam Brock, in for Tom Llamas tonight. A lot going on this Friday. Tonight, new details emerging about who reported what and when during the manhunt for CEO murder suspect Luigi Mangione. Could the NYPD have tracked him down earlier? We have just learned, according to two sources familiar with the matter, that the FBI actually initiated a phone call with Mangione's mom, Kathleen, on the Sunday before his arrest, where she told them the suspect photo, quote, could be him. Now, let's look at the timeline here of how it all started. San Francisco police confirming that Mangione's mother filed this missing persons report for him that was back on November 18th, roughly 2 weeks before the shooting. UnitedHealthcare CEO Brian Thompson was gunned down on December 4th. That's when a manhunt for the suspect ensued. A San Francisco police officer saw the wanted poster for the suspect and felt that he had some similar characteristics to the missing persons report. So on December 5th, that officer alerted the FBI in San Francisco, raising a flag about Mangione. Now, the FBI on the West Coast then passing the information along to its office in New York, and the FBI in New York then giving the tip to the NYPD, which says it was one of hundreds of tips that they received. But it was not until days later that Mangione was caught in Altoona, Pennsylvania. Now, with the NYPD saying the day of his arrest that Luigi was off their radar entirely, even earlier that day. Some big questions looming at this hour. Could Luigi Mangione have been caught sooner? And what is the NYPD's vetting process when handling just a flood of tips? We speak with a former NYPD chief in just a moment. We are also going to hear from the CEO of UnitedHealthcare's parent company, releasing this op-ed in the New York Times, acknowledging the healthcare system is flawed. We got a lot to get to. NBC's Stephanie Gosk starts us off.
Police say Luigi Mangione was on the run for 5 days after allegedly murdering UnitedHealthcare CEO Brian Thompson. The NYPD saying they didn't ID him until after his arrest. But tonight, two senior officials tell NBC News someone did think they recognized the face in that now infamous photo from a Manhattan hostel. A police officer in San Francisco made the connection to a missing person report filed by Mangione's mother in November and notified the FBI. It was one of hundreds of tips the NYPD says it received in the days following the murder, but it did not stand out to investigators because of its general nature, according to the officials. In the report, Mangione's mother said she last spoke to him on July 1st. On October 1st, a former classmate tells NBC News Mangione's cousin reached out to his high school classmates, mentioning he'd been missing for months and had suffered a back injury. Mangione is now locked up in a maximum custody Pennsylvania prison, while the NYPD says investigators are still trying to determine a possible motive. UnitedHealthcare says the 26-year-old was not covered by its health plan, but written pages found on Mangione mention the company by name, according to the NYPD.
He does make mention that it is the 5th largest corporation in America, which would make it the largest healthcare organization in America, so that's possibly why he targeted that company.
Suggesting the murder was more ideological than personal. The shooting unleashed a torrent of criticism aimed at the health insurance industry, with concerns that it could turn into copycat violence. In Florida, a woman was charged with threatening her health insurance company after she told an employee, "Delay, deny, depose. You people are next," echoing the words law enforcement officials say were written on the shell casings at the murder scene. She's pleaded not guilty. Wendell Potter is a former health insurance executive who left the business disenchanted. He now advocates for reforming the $1.4 trillion industry.
The anger is not new. I saw it when I was in the industry. I think this was some kind of a catalyzing event that made people want to respond in some way and vent their anger.
In an op-ed today, the CEO of United Group, the parent company of UnitedHealthcare, says his colleagues provide critical health services and are being barraged with threats, but also acknowledges the health system does not work as well as it should, adding, "Our mission is to help make it work better."
And a new detail we're just learning from two sources familiar with the matter, that after the FBI received that tip from San Francisco police, a member of law enforcement reached out to Mangione's mother Sunday night, the night before the arrest, and she said the suspect could be him. Sam?
All right, a key change in all the sequence here. Stephanie, thank you. For more on this, I want to bring in Terrence Monahan. He is the former NYPD Chief of Department and an NBC News contributor. Terrence, thank you so much for joining us. We heard initially from the family, the Mangione family. They were shocked and devastated by this. It was unclear what level of contact had or had not existed between his family and police. And then we find out that Kathleen Mangione actually had filed a missing persons report weeks before the murder, and that now the FBI had initiated a phone call with her prior to Mangione's arrest. What does this change, if anything, about this investigation?
When you look at it, there was so many tips coming in, so many different people who it could be. So everyone had to be vetted out. You had to take a look at it. You had to ascertain if they could have been in New York during that time period that the crimes happened. So the family would reach out, and then someone would reach back out to them. Someone from law enforcement reaches back out to see, where was he? What do you know about him? Tell me, do you think it could be him that did this crime? And then now you have to start looking at Luigi and see if he matches some of the electronics and everything else that was recovered from the scene.
Given the snapshots of photos that were released by police over the period of several days, do you think that that would necessarily be a slam dunk for family members to be able to recognize their loved one, or is it hard to say?
I looked at that picture, and if it was someone I knew, I wasn't sure if I'd be able to identify him right off the bat. I would have a clue. I would think it's a possibility. Let me reach out. But if you look at a person's history, if you don't think that person is capable of such a heinous crime, do you think, could this person I haven't seen in a while have done it? You may think it. You may not be sure if it's him. You may not want to give out this information, have him be a focus of a nationwide manhunt if it's not them. So I could see a little hesitation.
Tell me about this. You said it yourself, hundreds and hundreds of tips. How does the New York Police Department try to vet through all of these? If they're flagged by the FBI, but it's kind of vague in terms of the potential connection, how would police officers and investigators know to go to the top of the pile? This must be the guy or could be the guy.
There is no top of the pile till you vet them. So you may have 50 different individuals that you're looking at. Now you take those individuals and you just get their alibi. Are they guaranteed to be out of New York during that time? So now you can quickly eliminate that group. Do you have a group that was in New York during that time? Well, let's see. Narrow that down and start working them. Once you get someone that may have been in New York, now you have a more intensive investigation on those individuals. But it's a lot of work, painstaking work, and we're talking over just a 5-day period with nationwide tips coming in.
It's a laborious process. Hindsight is 20/20.
Exactly.
Do you think that 5.5 days to actually apprehend their man indicates there was a good amount of communication and workflow between the FBI and the NYPD, or do you think things could have been done better?
I think the communication was tremendous. If you take a look at where they were, from what I understand, between some of the investigations that were going on in New York, the electronics that had been recovered, work that was done, they were closing the gap on him soon. They were going to be able to identify him if it wasn't for the Altoona, they would have had him shortly. This is an individual that shot someone and disappeared.
Yeah.
And you were able to trace back and get his picture one time that he took that mask off. You got that mask, and now you were able to start doing all sorts of unique sort of investigations within this to identify him.
There was so much evidence strewn around the crime scene that investigators were able to obtain that you feel like it was a matter of time. This would have happened regardless whether it was a conversation with the Mangione family or not.
Absolutely. Techniques being utilized by the NYPD, the feds working together. They were able to track a lot more movements that haven't been released yet, knowing where he went, knowing certain things he did.
Yeah.
And I'm sure within a couple of days they would have had an identification.
Terrence, lastly, do you know if his mom, Kathleen Mangione, is it your understanding she was interviewed, obviously, or spoke with the FBI beforehand? Has she been interviewed since?
As far as I know, she was interviewed by a member of the a task force, the NYPD FBI task force. And as far as I know, she has not been interviewed yet by the PD. I believe she may have some lawyers involved.
For sure. I have no doubt she does, and this investigation certainly is going to go on for a long time. Terrence Monahan, formerly of the NYPD Chief of Department, thank you so much. We appreciate your time, sir.
You got it, Sam.
All right, we're going to switch gears a little bit here now to the weather and communities right now across the Great Lakes that are facing a bitter blast of cold and snow. If you live there, you certainly know what I'm talking about, some of that. Western New York buried by more than 30 inches of snow in some places, making for treacherous travel conditions. Erie County reporting more than 50 vehicles that just skid right off the road yesterday alone. For more on the winter weather wallop, NBC News meteorologist Bill Cairns joining us now. Bill, we've obviously got the cold, we've got snow, and we're still more than a week away from winter, officially at least. Walk us through what we're looking at right now.
Yeah, and buckle up for this roller coaster ride over this next week and a half, right up until Christmas. We got one storm after another, a couple cold shots in between, a lot of storms with mixed precipitation. So the cold air is in place. It's still 0 in Fargo right now, it feels like. New York's at 24, not much better. Northern Maine's cold, too. Now the warm air is trying to move in. A lot of times when this happens, we get ice, and that's the case. We got sleet right now, mixed with some isolated freezing rain around Omaha. This is going to be widespread during the night tonight, a very dangerous, treacherous drive anywhere from Minneapolis down to Omaha overnight. We even have an ice storm warning from Des Moines to Cedar Rapids to just west of Burlington. We could get up to a 1/4 inch of ice. That's enough to have some isolated power outages on, as tree limbs start to crack and they start to crumble a little bit. But just a lot of slip and fall potential. This is really the first real chance of ice that we've had so far this winter season.
And it has been a busy one already. Bill Cairns, thank you so much for that. To politics now. And the latest controversy enveloping the president-elect's pick to run Health and Human Services, RFK Jr. Now reporting is coming out from the New York Times showing that Kennedy's lawyer had asked the FDA to revoke the authorization of the polio vaccine. This happened 2 years ago. The polio vaccine has protected millions for decades and all but eradicated the disease in the United States. Aaron Gilchrist has the reaction coming in late tonight, and also from the Trump campaign.
Tonight, a growing firestorm around President-elect Trump's pick to lead the nation's health department, RFK Jr. The New York Times reporting Kennedy's lawyer, Aaron Siri, asked the FDA 2 years ago to revoke approval of the polio vaccine, which has been used for nearly 70 years to inoculate millions against that deadly disease.
The polio vaccine is one of our safest vaccines. It's actually responsible for almost the near extinction of wild polio virus.
The new revelation sparking swift backlash.
You can't make this stuff up.
Massachusetts Senator Elizabeth Warren blasting Kennedy in a video posted to X.
Say goodbye to your smile and say hello to polio. This is a man who wants to stop kids from getting their polio and measles shots. He's actually welcoming a return to polio, a disease we nearly eradicated.
Republican Senator Mitch McConnell, a polio survivor, also speaking out in support of the vaccine, saying efforts to undermine public confidence in proven cures are not just uninformed, they're dangerous, adding anyone seeking the Senate's consent to serve in the incoming administration would do well to steer clear of even the appearance of association with such efforts. In response to the New York Times reporting, Kennedy and the Trump transition team releasing identical statements saying the polio vaccine should be available to the public and thoroughly and properly studied. In a statement to the New York Times, Siri said all of his petitions were filed on behalf of his clients. Kennedy's vaccine skepticism has become a hallmark of his public health image, pushing debunked claims that childhood vaccines can cause autism. In an interview with Time magazine, Trump echoed those concerns, saying, "We're going to have a big discussion. The autism rate is at a level that nobody ever believed possible."
Pam is going to be great.
But in an interview with our own Kristen Welker on Meet the Press, Trump seemed dubious about taking the polio vaccine off the market.
The polio vaccine is the greatest thing. If somebody told me get rid of the polio vaccine, they're going to have to work real hard to convince me. I think certain vaccines are incredible.
Polio was once one of the most concerning childhood illnesses on the planet, a vicious infectious disease that sometimes invades the central nervous system, causing paralysis. It was responsible for more than 500,000 deaths a year globally before the introduction of a vaccine in the 1950s. Now it's virtually non-existent in the U.S. and most other places around the world.
While in the United States we're free of paralytic polio, there is still a risk if we stop vaccinating that we may see cases occur again. This is something that we really still need until this virus is eradicated from the planet.
Last month, Kennedy addressed concerns about his vaccine views with our Von Hilliard.
If vaccines are working for somebody, I'm not going to take them away. People ought to have a choice, and that choice ought to be informed by the best information.
Aaron Gilchrist joining us now from Washington, D.C. Aaron, RFK Jr. still has to get congressional approval before he would become HHS secretary. So the question now is, how will this new reporting impact his chances of confirmation?
Yeah, that really is a big question. Part of this, you could say, is just sort of part of the process, right? We know that when you're chosen to be a cabinet-level secretary during the transition process, there are going to be people who dig into your past. They're going to dig into the past statements, for example, of people who are connected to you. And so these things become a part of the news cycle. When it comes time for confirmation hearings, though, Robert F. Kennedy Jr. will have to answer questions about the things that other people have said to him, about him, or on his behalf, and sort of make an accounting as to whether he supports those ideas or not in this moment. And then those people in those confirmation hearings are going to make some decisions about whether they will vote for him or not. And so ultimately, we will see what happens come January when the new Congress takes session. Sam?
Yeah, that hearing is going to be a hot ticket. Aaron Gilchrist for us there. Thank you so much, Aaron. Now to a growing mystery tonight. Lawmakers and now even President-elect Trump are demanding answers about unexplained nightly sightings in the skies over New Jersey and now other states as well, widely presumed by some who live there to be drones. The mysterious aircraft so far not deemed a threat, according to the federal government. But with at least 80 sightings overnight in New Jersey alone, many are asking, what are these things? Who is controlling them? NBC's Aaron McLaughlin has the story.
First drone of the night, just getting home from work.
Tonight, as the mysterious sighting spread from Maryland to New York, New Jersey.
I've never seen anything like it.
And beyond. So too do calls from local and state officials for answers and accountability.
No state can become the Wild West of drone activity.
And now high-profile officials are among those reporting sightings. Last night, former Maryland Governor Larry Hogan says he captured this video appearing to show dozens of large drones hovering over his home. The same evening, U.S. Senator Andy Kim says he saw this over a reservoir while out drone hunting with local police.
Some appear to hover or at least seem to be in position.
That sighting among the 79 reports overnight in New Jersey, according to a senior official, with reports every evening since November 18th, except for Thanksgiving. The state's governor firing off a letter to the president demanding answers, saying that existing laws limit the ability of authorities to counter this activity.
We don't know who's flying them or what information they're collecting.
While in Mendham, New Jersey, the mayor is taking action, setting up a task force to track the activity.
So this started in November. Is it possible that people just started looking up in November?
I think it's possible. I spoke to the sheriff. He told me drones have been around for a while, but not to this degree.
The Naval Weapons Station Earl also confirming several instances of unidentified drones entering the airspace above the facility.
The FBI should be standing at a podium of the Department of Homeland Security and briefing the public.
Tonight, the FAA responding for the first time on camera to the drone sightings, reminding the public of the rules.
It's okay to fly them in most areas as long as you stay below 400 feet. And if you're flying at night, the drone must have certain lighting.
With anxiety spreading online,
Anything, 'cause I'm freaking out over here.
officials acknowledge there are still many more questions than answers. And in the last half hour, we've seen a number of what appear to be drones, all flying erratically with flashing lights. Sam.
All right, Aaron, still going on, clearly. For more on the growing concerns surrounding this drone mystery, I'm joined now by Rob D'Amico. He is the founder of Sierra One Consulting and the former FBI counter-drone unit chief. So tons of expertise in this area. Rob, thank you so much for joining me. And clearly, this is a concern for many, many people. Authorities so far have said it's not a foreign threat, but they're not explaining what exactly it is, certainly not in any detail. So what's going on here?
I think now you're at the point where you have people flying drones just to fly drones, either to look for other drones or to add to the chaos and the hysteria that's going on. But I still think 90% of the sightings are planets, manned aircraft. When you're not used to looking into the sky, all those things look different. Low orbit satellites, they all appear to be something flying over. You can't tell how far they are. And everyone, like all this proof out there, there's no proof from a counter-drone system. New Jersey State Police has a counter-drone system. Why aren't they showing us what this activity looks like on it? And it is interesting also the federal government has said, the White House, the FBI, DHS, they've said that they have looked at the imagery and they don't see anything that confirms drones, more so as manned aircrafts, to really reiterate your point. I guess my question would be the FBI is the agency that does determine whether or not there's a national security risk here. But now that they clearly have done that and say there's not one, who picks up the ball when it comes to monitoring the actual drones themselves? Because the FBI is not in the drone chasing business. So is there a gap there, or who picks this up? Well, they're not. The FBI is not. For special events, we would go out for weaponized drones. That's what we're looking for. The FAA is the people that really regulate this. They control the airspace. Local governments don't, because airspace is federal. But again, it's G. But what gets me now is Congress is coming to the FBI. When I was in the FBI, we were going to Congress almost demanding that the FBI be allowed to train state and locals, one, how to detect drones, and if they ever get the authority, how to mitigate drones by bringing it down. Shooting them down is out of the question almost. A drone can fall and kill someone, so that you're chancing someone dying for like a drone sightseeing or something. That's very strict. But we went to Congress and asked them to allow the FBI, like the bomb techs, train state and locals how to track drones, and if it's a safety issue, how to mitigate them. But they refuse to. And again, the FAA is the one in charge of drones. And if it's 400 feet and below and you can see it and you have the right lights on, there's nothing illegal about it. Rob, we got about 30 seconds left. Real quickly, talk to me about the modern-day usage of drones and how they could also be dangerous, from everything from warfare to surveillance. How have they evolved over time? It's unbelievable. And everything weaponized on drones is going on in Ukraine right now, both by Russia, by Ukrainians, both offensive and defensive. That's where drone tactics are coming in. We saw them in Syria and Iraq with ISIS was the first one to start dropping grenades. That's a threat. And then, of course, the nation-state ones are a bit different because there's such a different technology. Like Iran would not be flying drones that have lights on at an altitude that people can hear it. Definitely. Rob, thank you so much for your expertise on this. Truly appreciated. Still ahead tonight, an NBC News exclusive. The woman accusing rapper Jay-Z and Sean Diddy Combs of rape coming forward. What she is telling our Chloe Malas about the alleged incident when she was 13 years old, and our reporting finding inconsistencies in her recollection. Plus, surviving chemical warfare, victims of the sarin gas attack at the hands of Syria's Assad regime, unable to tell their stories until now. What they're saying about the atrocities that they faced. And dramatic video as flames shoot out of a plane engine. This flight forced to make an emergency landing. Stay with us. We'll be right back. Well, we are back now on an update on a high-profile case that we've been following. Jay-Z's rape accuser coming forward, but with contradictions in her account. Earlier this week, the woman accusing the music mogul of raping her when she was 13 years old spoke out exclusively to NBC News. Our Chloe Malas has the investigation and a warning. The details in this story may be disturbing.
You should always advocate for yourself and be a voice for yourself. You should never let what somebody else did ruin or run your life.
A 38-year-old mother from Alabama who has filed a lawsuit accusing Sean Diddy Combs and Jay-Z of raping her when she was 13 years old is speaking out to NBC News for the first time. She asked us not to reveal her identity.
What made you want to come forward and talk today?
Because I think that I've been quiet long enough about what I've been through, and it's been hard enough to be quiet. But it's a chapter of my life that I'd like to close.
An NBC News review of her account found inconsistencies with her allegations. She says that she went to the MTV Video Music Awards in 2000 to catch a glimpse of her favorite celebrities.
You weren't scared to be all alone?
No, with having autism is like feeling like you live your life in a shatterproof juggle ball. The world's on fire. The fire is inside the ball with you, but there's no way for you to get out.
In addition to having autism, the woman says she suffered a head injury. The night of the 2000s VMAs, she says a friend drove her from Rochester, New York to Manhattan, a more than 5-hour drive. Her attorney provided NBC News with the name of the friend who has since died. The woman says she spoke to Combs's limo driver, who offered her a ride to an after party.
I stumbled upon Diddy's driver, who told me that I was exactly what Diddy was looking for.
What did you think when he said that to you?
I thought it meant that I was just pretty.
She went to a White House, she says, where she spoke to musicians Benji Madden and his brother.
I'm talking to Benji Madden about his tattoo because, I have about his tattoo that's the Last Supper, because I have a religious background. So it was just something to talk about.
In a statement to NBC News, a representative of the Maddens confirmed that they did not attend the 2000 VMAs and that they were on tour in the Midwest at the time. At the after party, she says she had a drink that made her feel woozy. Then she says Combs and Carter took turns raping her while a female celebrity watched.
JC comes in and rapes me. He at that point I was fighting, trying to get away from him, and he put his hand over my mouth and told me to stop it, cut the.
After the alleged rape, she says she ran to a gas station where she called her father, who picked her up and drove her home.
We rode home in silence. He didn't ask me what happened. He didn't ask me what I did or where I was.
In an interview with NBC News, her father said he could not verify the claims. Quote, "I felt like I would remember that, and I don't. I have a lot going on, but I mean, that's something that would definitely stick in my mind," he said. When we asked the woman about the contradictions in a phone interview on Friday, she said that she stands by her statements. "I have made some mistakes," she said. "Honestly, what is the clearest is what happened to me." The inconsistencies in her account of an incident alleged to have happened 24 years ago does not necessarily mean the allegations are false. The accuser's attorney, Tony Busby, said, "Because we have interrogated her intensely, she has even agreed to submit to a polygraph. This has been extremely distressing for her, to the point she has experienced seizures and had to seek medical treatment due to the stress." In a statement to NBC News, Sean Carter said this incident didn't happen, and yet he filed it in court and doubled down in the press. "True justice is coming. We fight from victory, not for victory."
Is any part of you scared coming out against such powerful people?
Yeah, I'm scared of what could happen, but I'm more afraid of letting it eat me alive from the inside out than I am of being chastised by their fans.
All right, Chloe Malas joining us now live. Chloe, we just heard a very strongly worded statement from Jay-Z. What else are you hearing from him and his team?
Yes, so his attorney said that they're going to ask the court to, quote, dismiss this frivolous case. And also moments ago, we heard from Diddy's legal team, and I want to read you some of what they said. They said, quote, "This is the beginning of the end of this shameful money grab." And remember, he remains behind bars at Brooklyn's Metropolitan Detention Center, and his criminal trial begins in May.
All right, very thorough reporting there. Chloe, thank you so much for that. Well, coming up next, when we return, the urgent search for a suspect in a deadly home invasion, how Siri may have helped save a woman after she was shot in that home and left unable to move. And welcome back now with Top Stories news feed, starting with former House Speaker Nancy Pelosi hospitalized while on a congressional trip in Luxembourg. Here's what we know. Spokesperson for Pelosi saying the 84-year-old tripped going downstairs and was admitted to the hospital for an injury. Now, they did not elaborate on the extent of those injuries. Pelosi was traveling with a congressional delegation commemorating the 80th anniversary of a World War II battle. And a bird strike tonight, forcing an emergency landing at New York's JFK Airport. Video showing a bird flying into a plane's engine right during takeoff at nearby LaGuardia Airport, causing sparks to fly. You see it right there from the engine immediately after. The Charlotte-bound flight safely landing at JFK, thankfully, with a severely damaged engine. Luckily, nobody was hurt. Now tonight, we move to a deadly home invasion right outside of Philadelphia. Police tonight saying that they have arrested one man but are still searching for a second suspect after they allegedly broke into a woman's home, shooting and killing her son and leaving her paralyzed. The mother managing to survive after she used Siri to call police. NBC's Stephen Romo reports.
Tonight, a manhunt underway after a home invasion just outside Philadelphia left one man dead and his mother severely wounded.
We're dealing with some really terrible people at this point that have committed an atrocious crime.
Bernadette Gaudio telling investigators that in the early hours of Sunday morning, she was asleep when two intruders broke into her home, woke her up, and opened fire, striking her. Her 25-year-old son rushing in to help, Bernadette says, but the assailants shooting him too, as they fled with a jewelry box and video game console, according to police. Bernadette unable to move, using Siri to call 911. Her son was later pronounced dead.
It was a very brave move on her part, because I think indications are that the individuals were still in the house at the time.
Police using surveillance footage and phone location data to identify two suspects, Kelvin Roberts and his boss at a junk removal company, Charles Fulforth. Authorities arresting Fulforth just yesterday on murder and several felony charges, saying they uncovered multiple guns at his home. He's awaiting arraignment and has been denied bail. But investigators are still searching for Roberts. They're offering a $5,000 reward, hoping to bring some semblance of justice to Bernadette and her surviving family.
She's paralyzed right now and trying to work through that, but she seems to be getting a little bit of movement, and we hope and pray for more of a recovery from her.
Stephen Romo joining us now live in studio. Stephen, obviously this is so heartbreaking. Do police have any sense at all? This had all the trappings of a robbery. Why this would have turned deadly?
Yeah, that's what's so puzzling to investigators, Sam. It turned deadly over stealing a jewelry box and a game console. A young man died. His mother shot multiple times here. The violence, though, while it doesn't make sense, it's one of the reasons the police are looking for Roberts so intently. They are considering him armed and dangerous and really want to get him behind bars because he remains on the loose right now.
A 25-year-old dead and a woman paralyzed over a game console. Thank you, Stephen. Appreciate that. Well, we're going to turn overseas now to Syria and the renewed calls for justice from victims of chemical weapon attacks under the Assad regime. NBC News foreign correspondent Matt Bradley traveled to the site of the deadliest single attack to hear directly from those survivors. And a warning now, the following report does contain graphic images.
It's been more than 11 years. But the people of Ghouta, Syria, haven't forgotten how it felt to inhale poisonous sarin gas. Mohammed al-Baghdadi estimates that more than 1,000 people were killed in one of the Assad regime's most notorious chemical attacks. The U.S. government estimated the attack killed nearly 1,500 people. mostly women and children.
So he's saying that the reason why they used chemical weapons here, he thinks, is because this was kind of the origin of the peaceful protests that inspired the revolution on the internet. And that's why the regime targeted this place with chemical weapons as an act of revenge.
But the Assad regime has fallen. The Syrian people, once beset by dictatorship and war, are celebrating in the streets. Now that there's peace, the people of Ghouta are yearning for justice. They want to see those who perpetrated this punished. This man also survived the Ghouta attack. He and others want assurances that atrocities like this one will never happen again.
He says that, there were thousands who were killed, thousands who were tortured, and he and the Syrian people, they're not going to be able to breathe freely. They're not going to be comfortable until they see Bashar al-Assad and all of his accomplices put to justice.
The Organization for the Prohibition of Chemical Weapons held an emergency meeting on Syria's stockpile yesterday in The Hague and pledged to send weapons inspectors to Syria. After the Ghouta attack, the organization destroyed about 1,100 metric tons of sarin, VX, and mustard gas. But the Assad regime continued to use chemical weapons on its own people. And experts believe there's still chemical weapons left in Syria. So far, the Biden administration has expressed concern about the stockpiles, but it's leaving the matter to international groups.
We are certainly focused and concerned about and the potential use of chemical agents falling into the wrong hands in Syria. That work is really being done through other partners.
So even as Ghouta recalls its tragic past, many here are looking forward to a future that's no longer threatened by chemical weapons.
شو تتوقع من المستقبل؟
نصر جديد إن شاء الله. أنا بحكي عندما سقط النظام أشعر فرحة جدا رائعة لأنه يوجد هناك العديد من الشهداء والضحايا الذين قتلوا بسبب كرسي.
And Sam, the pursuit of justice for Syrians is even playing out in American courts. Yesterday, a grand jury in California charged Samir Osman Sheikh, who led the notorious Adra prison for several years, with several counts of torture and conspiracy to commit torture. Sam? Matt, thank you so much for that very important reporting. We'll be right back. All right, this is a fun one. Back now with a special basketball game between teenage girls and FBI agents. You probably didn't think I was going to say that. All part of an effort to build trust and relationships between the most powerful law enforcement agency in the land and young people in the D.C. region. Ken Delanian reports from Washington.
Call it basketball diplomacy. A group of teenage students from Washington, D.C. taking the court against the women hoopsters of the FBI. The idea, give the kids a chance to learn about the Bureau, while also trying to give the Bureau's faltering public image a boost.
I've mainly learned how you can do a lot of things inside of the FBI. You don't have to just be an agent.
What are the things that you heard about that interest you?
Maybe just like actually working with technology.
Polls show public confidence in the FBI has fallen in recent years, and the Bureau would like more people to know about all the things it does that have nothing to do with the big Washington controversies. It also wants to recruit more women and people of color. Those two goals coming together on the FBI's famed basketball court, deep in the bowels of its D.C. headquarters. President Obama used to play here. Now the FBI is hosting a series of friendly games with local teams from minority communities. A group of high school players edged out a male FBI squad in January. On this day, it was young women squaring off against a female FBI team, some of whom had played in college. But it wasn't just basketball on display. The teens were able to talk to the agents and tour the FBI's museum.
It's pretty cool.
What kind of things that you learned today interested you about this place?
Investigating crime scenes.
There are so many cool opportunities here in the FBI.
The agents told the students about different careers at the Bureau, including many that don't involve carrying a badge and a gun.
Our goal was to provide an opportunity for kids in the community to come into the FBI, to not only have the chance to play basketball here, but to engage with the men and women of the FBI.
D.C. native John Lenzner is FBI Director Chris Wray's former chief of staff.
We want people in the communities to not only trust law enforcement, but also to see themselves in law enforcement so that they can imagine themselves having a career in public service.
Nikki Flores is an FBI intelligence analyst.
I hope they come away with the FBI is a welcoming environment, and it's potentially something that they could do, and that it's something they could aspire to be a part of, and that the FBI really is a family, and we're a team. Much like they're a member of a team, the FBI is a team as well.
In the end, the agents came out on top in the game, but the students won something bigger.
I hope they come away with some inspiration, really understanding their own purpose. I know a lot of them, or most of them, may not become FBI employees or FBI agents, but I hope through our stories, the information that we share, they can see themselves achieving whatever it is that they want to.
An agency that once excluded women and minorities, now trying to inspire a new generation. Ken Delanian, NBC News, Washington.
And that's going to do it. Thanks so much for watching Top Story on this Friday, the 13th. I'm Sam Brock in New York for Tom Llamas. Stay right there because more news is on the way.
Thanks for watching. Stay updated about breaking news and top stories on the NBC News app or follow us on social media.